So comrades, I want to talk about three things: the Labour Party and what is going on in the Labour Party today. It's you need your head shook up to try and understand what is going on. I want to talk about the Labour Party, what sort of party it is, what's going on. I want to talk about Zionism, and I'm going to argue about what I would describe, to understand Zionism, three stages of Zionism: Zionism in the margins, Zionism as the mainstream, almost a monolith, and today Zionism in crisis. But I really want to be forthright in talking about the fight against anti-Semitism today, because that is what is on the banner of Stand Up to Racism. And there are some people around who are using their own political purposes to do what I describe as those that cry wolf when there is no wolf, increase the likelihood that we will be eaten by wolves. And I'll try and explain what that means. Okay, so what about the Labour Party? Because the Labour Party today is led by the most anti-racist leader that has ever led the Labour Party. You remember all the people that joined Labour and supported Labour and elected Jeremy Corbyn, and the first thing he did when being elected was he joined the Stand Up to Racism demonstration and marched, for the refugees. He's also previously chair of Stop the War and Palestine Solidarity campaign. He is a lifelong anti-racist, fighter for equality and justice. He is now the leader of the Labour Party. But the Labour Party today have suspended, so far today, 50 people. 50, including just today, I think it's another 3 Muslim Labour councillors, based on what they may or may not have put on Facebook or Twitter last year, the year before, or even the year before that. So there is accusations that people in the Labour Party are anti-Semitic because they are in one way or another critical of the actions of Israel in their oppression and, worse, of the Palestinian people, that they are anti-Zionist, and therefore if they're against what Israel is and what it is doing, they also therefore must be anti-Semitic and therefore they're racist. This is the argument that is being put. And this is the investigation that the Labour Party's, I think it's called what's it called? Something Commission. They've got like a body that enforces it, and they're the ones making the decisions. So this is a very strange situation that the most anti-racist Labour Party leadership of Labour ever has been accused of being a racist party. And actually, look out for sexist party as well. Because remember what they said, if you were to say that the news anchor on the BBC flagship programme is anti-Corbyn, if you say that, and I think was it 36,000 people said that you have not allowed to say that because that's being sexist. It's a similar political inversion of what's going on. Now, the Labour Party, I want you to think about the British Labour Party, not from where we are, but from Tel Aviv, from Israel, because this is supposed to be about Israel, because the leaders of Israel can see that they are part of a nation state, the Israeli state, that is seen now as a pariah state, as a nasty, brutal state by many, many countries and certainly by millions of people across the world because of what it did and does every day. Just this week, I think I saw an 11-year-old girl released from prison, an Israeli prison, and you saw her face, it was broken. You could see that the trauma had been so much she will never be the same person as the girl that she went in. That's just one little thing. These things happening all the while, and we know what happened in Gaza a few years ago. But also if you look from Israel's point of view, and they want to sustain a strong state of Israel, they look to America and they look to Europe, and they see that millions of people are saying we don't like Israel and what they're doing, and we are supporting the Palestinians and the boycott and divestment sanctions movement. And from Israel, the leaders of Israel have declared a war on BDS. They've said that. Because BDS is growing. A civil society, non-violent boycott movement. So there are political forces using whatever they can today to try and bring down Jeremy Corbyn, because also in Britain, we had 1 million or more, some say 2 million people marched on February 15, 2003, don't attack Iraq, freedom for Palestine. We have in Britain the strongest Palestinian solidarity network and history of any other European country. You know, in France, you are not allowed by law to demonstrate in support of the Palestinians. Do you believe that? Mm-hmm. So, you know, that's the Labour Party, the British Labour Party, being accused of being a racist party by who? By people who are in racist parties. The Conservative Party. Doesn't need a lot of spelling out, you know, what they said about, you know, the London mayor, you know, that he was a terrorist, Muslim terrorist, and all the rest of it. So they are the racist party. But actually, there are other racist parties in Europe, really nasty racist parties. In Eastern Europe, there are parties that are being set up and getting votes and growing that are set up from a political history of people who are in the SS, who were in the, you know, organised the death of millions of Jews in Poland, Lithuania, other Eastern European countries. In Hungary, half the people in Budapest, the capital, say openly, we are against the Jews. They're anti-Semitic. So there are big, serious anti-Semitic forces growing across Eastern Europe particularly, but look at France. Front National, heading the presidential polls, led by Marine Le Pen, granddaughter, I can't remember, of Jean-Marie Le Pen, who said that the Holocaust was a mere detail of human history. And he said that because it was illegal to say it didn't happen. I remember the Northwest British National Party Euro MP, what's his name? Griffin, right? On Question Time, he got on Question Time once, I asked him about it, and he said, I'm not allowed to say in this country what I really think about the Holocaust. That's what he said, right? So there are, you know, there are Nazi-loving, there are serious anti-Semitic parties around, you know, including, you know, people inside the Conservative Party. But they're using a political conjuncture to try and destabilise the Labour Party, including with people inside the Labour Party who are Labour Friends of Israel and are, you know, the right wing of the Labour Party. So that's something about the Labour Party. And come back to the Labour Party, because I think we need to talk about this a bit more. But the second thing I want to talk about, and try and be clear about, because political clarity does matter, and it has been raised about Zionism and Zionist history with Ken Livingstone, who was trying to defend Shah. I've forgotten his first name, the MP from Bradford, Naz Shah, who replaced George Galloway, and is a very decent Muslim woman. How proud her family must be that she is the MP, and she came from very difficult, you know, origins. And before she became a councillor, was engaged in Muslim-Jewish forums, solidarity, mutual, you know. Now she's a Holocaust denier and an anti-Semite. What a horrendous thing to accuse, you know, a new Labour MP of doing. Because why? She shared a post on Facebook with a map on it. That is not anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism, we saw at its height in Poland, and one of the Polish parties that's now gaining in the election is linked to, with people, there's a guy who owned land and his barn was burnt down in the Second World War, at the end of the Second World War, but it was full of Jews, and he's trying to sue the Jews to say it's giving him a bad name, it happened on his land. Right? You know, honest to God, this is going on at the moment. So, Zionism, what is Zionism? Zionism has been around for less than 150 years. Judaism, the Jewish religion, has been around over 5,000 years. Only in the last 150 years there's been Zionism, because the Jewish religion said, in its teaching, from, I think it's AD 70, the fall of the Second Temple, that the Jews now live all over the world and wait for the Messiah to return, and then they will return to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. It's a spiritual homeland. That is the religious teaching, and that's why there are Jews still today, and you see them demonstrating, and we're here in Manchester, we've had them on our Palestinian demonstrations speaking. They say, we're waiting for God. We don't accept the Israeli state. We oppose Zionism because it doesn't say in the Torah that a former Tory MP from Manchester, Lord Balfour, would sign a deal that would give us Eretz Yisrael. And it doesn't say that there will be armed groups of Zionists, and they called themselves Zionists in 1945, 46, 47, 48, who would have a rising with guns and bring about Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. So Zionism comes about not as a religious project at all, it's a political project, and it started as a one response to anti-Semitism at the end of the 19th century in Europe, especially in France with the Dreyfus affair. And one response by a small number of Jews was, anti-Semitism is so bad, we can't live here anymore, ever, we will never be able to live together, we've got to go and find another place in the world that's safe and it's just ours, a Jewish place of safety. Actually they looked Madagascar, bits of Russia, different places, but the decision to go to Palestine for the Zionists came actually by a chemist who was at Manchester University in this city, Chaim Weizmann, who led the World Zionist Organisation and said, we must say we want a homeland in Palestine. Well, they're never going to get a homeland in Palestine. It's a complete dream, nobody wanted to know anything to do with it. He complained that the Jews in Manchester, the Cheathamites, they all stand behind the revolutionary banners because they wanted to unite and fight for a better deal for Jews and non-Jews together in this city and in many, many other places. The Zionists are in the margins. The only place that I can see evidence that they fought was the left Zionists fought in the ghetto uprising. Fantastic. You know, and there's a book, I hope the book on Warsaw Ghetto is on the bookstore and people should read that. But the second stage of Zionism is in the shadow of the darkest days of human and European history, the Holocaust. And we do have and do insist on a specificity of the Holocaust with a capital H. It's not about numbers and it's not about justice or anything like that. It's because the people that were killed, 200 million or more in the slave trade, millions, I can't remember, 50 million people were killed in the Congo, millions of people have been killed, the Native Americans, you know. Germany in the 1930s was the most advanced capitalist country in the world, along with America and Britain. The most advanced. People had fled from Eastern Europe, fled anti-Semitism, gone to Central Europe. Let's go to Germany, it would be safer for the Jews. Trotsky in 1905 had to flee after the failed 1905 revolution. He went to Vienna. It was safer in Vienna. So it was a tolerant Germany and Austria until the economic crisis and the forces of the counter-revolution of the failed revolutions of 1919 in Germany took up the flag of the counter-revolution, the swastika, and then Hitler grows with the German Nazi Party and is supported by big business, desperate to keep the socialists and the communists down, worried about revolution, and prepared to back the Nazis in order to save German capitalism. It happened. So the project of Hitler and the Nazis brought about the Holocaust, and there are concentration camps in many places in history which are horrendous. But the Holocaust had death camps where the only purpose was not to work labour to death, but was for the elimination of human beings. So that's why we call it a Holocaust, that it happened in the most advanced capitalist country in the world and used the most advanced technology and everything else in the world in the hands of the fascists, a razor sharper than anyone had ever seen or could ever possibly have imagined. and they bring about this death camp and destruction. And that is in the hands of a political movement of fascism. That's what caused all this. So that's why we are always very, very determined and insistent anti-fascists. But Zionism today is not like the Zionism after the Second World War. Now, I was born in 1956, and my mum was bombed out of London, and her relatives, mainly but not all, escaped and weren't. But there was a grandma who lived in my auntie's house, in the room at the top of the house, and she was, I never really saw her once, and she was described as, "You bubbler, she's mad." Now, what does that mean, right? She used to, at night, come out and look for bread, right? Well, it's mad, there's a pantry full of bread. But it's not mad if you've had to look for bread, as she had to do, because she escaped from whatever she had been through, and every Jewish family in the world has got a story like that at the heart of their personal and family history. So my mum said, "We're never having anything German, and we've got to back Israel, because you never know, Mark, one day this might happen again and we need a safe place." So it was hegemonic. But today, in the last couple of years, there's been I think it's a 30% or a tripling of opposition to Israel. And the young generation today do not look to Israel, they look to Palestine. And across North America they say, Black Lives Matter, Palestinian Lives Matter. And the boycott, divestment, sanction movement is going all over the colleges and all over the universities. And Hillary Clinton, who is a Methodist and a Zionist, you don't have to be Jewish to be a Zionist because she says she supports the Israeli state, describes it as the only flower in, a desert of destruction. She's in the Methodist Church who've just decided earlier this year that they're going to, and have actually withdrawn all of their financial investments in any Israeli banks. And now they want to consider not having investments in, I think it's three multinational companies who've got interests in Israel. So the growing BDS movement and the support of the people, when we say in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians, it's true. So we are winning, but the other side is spooked. This is a serious escalation of the, if you like, the fight for Palestinian justice and those who want to derail that fight. So we are absolutely insistent, as is many others in the movement in Britain, that to criticise Israel is not anti-Semitic. Now, what do we do? You see, I would say that there are two things to do at the moment. We have to talk to people and explain, if you like, through the fog of all of this, especially the difference between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism. Anti-Semitism is about... Anti-Semitism is about being against what I call, or describe as the Jews of the book. It's about their religious practices. When a Danish city says there will be no more non-pork options on the menu, that's an anti-Semitic thing because the religious practice, you don't eat pork. Now, they intended it to actually attack the Muslims, but it attacks the Jews as well. Racism feeds on each other. If you're a teacher in the Oldham Community School and you've been active campaigning against the British National Party in Oldham, and you come to work and it's got yids out on your blackboard, and that happened to a comrade in our district, that's anti-Semitic, it's about your religion. But if you say, I don't think it's right what they're doing when Israel organises and bombs the Palestinians, that's not anti-Semitic. As the Council of Mosques for Manchester, Salford and Stockport said this week, we are not going to deviate from criticising their state in violation of United Nations resolutions. This is just simple. So we are going to continue to criticise Israel. But the fight against anti-Semitism is very important because in statistical terms, and Finkelstein refers to this, about 7% of people in this country say they're against the Jews. I might get the numbers wrong, it's something like about 20% are against Muslims, 30% are against Roma. He says that Jews have got a problem in the societies. They're in all levels of society, you know. Now, in a descriptive term, that might be the case. In a political term, we are in a Europe that is in crisis and is in a serious situation. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So the unity between Muslims and Christians and Jews and people who've got humanity and everyone else on the left and in the unions is absolutely critical. So my push for how do we combat anti-Semitism today is two things. The first is to clarify and be clear about what we say about the Israeli state. It could only come into existence when the British imperialism supported its project in 1917 with the Balfour Declaration, and American imperialism after 1948 when the Israeli state, and it continues sponsored by imperialism. Without the money and the political support, it couldn't any longer exist. It is propped up by imperialism, but it's also become not a haven for the Jews. We used to say it's a false messiah. It's the most dangerous place for Jewish people to live in the world. Any Jew in the world could go and live in Israel tomorrow. They don't want to go. Most Jews live in New York and America and Manchester. Can I say this? In Paris, after the Paris bombings, Netanyahu flies to Paris, talks to the families, they leave children's bodies, they're going to come and we're going to bury them in Israel. They did. And he went and he spoke in the key synagogue in France. There were thousands of Jews there. Religious synagogue, he made quite a good speech. And afterwards, they all got up and they sang the Marseillaise, the French national anthem, because they're French and they're Jewish. You know, it was a political statement. So Zionism is in crisis, and there is anti-Semitism, but the anti-Semitism is coming from two places, especially the Eastern European Nazi parties, who can blame the Jews for the financial problems. You can't blame the Muslims for the financial problems in the same way. Anti-Semitism it has its own particularity as they're using it, but the other place is the discrediting of the Jews by the actions of Israel. Whenever Israel bombs Palestinians, there's reported more anti-Semitic attacks. And some people think, look at that, it's terrible. And if you are inside Gaza and the only Jews you ever see trying to kill you, you can say, Jews. It's not, it's the Israeli government and their army and their oppression. I remember being on a big anti-war demonstration in London and we were chanting and this guy comes up and he says, let's do this one. Kill the Jews. He said this to me, I was on the megaphone and I went, but I'm Jewish. And he looked like, and I went, whoa. And I thought, what? And I said, how about this? Down, Israel. And they all started, it was, Ariel Sharon, murderer. And they all started chanting that. But then he was like, he came over, he was hugging me afterwards, and then he says, do you want to come to the mosque? And he thought of becoming a Muslim. We're trying to look as a compliment. But we developed our political trajectory in the course of the struggle. So the conduct of Israel is becoming not a haven but actually a source of anti-Semitism, along with the serious anti-Semitism much nearer to us on the doorstep. But the combating anti-Semitism is the same as combating Islamophobia, anti-racism and all of the bigotry in Britain today, and that is to build solidarity with refugees. So there is in Manchester a Jewish Muslim forum, and Nadine, who's a counsellor, who's on that, is raising at the Jewish Muslim forum, can we send together some aid to Calais? Jews and Muslims for the refugees in Calais. That's concrete solidarity that delivers the solidarity that it needs and actually shows we are on the same side together. And it comes out complicated. If I don't mind saying, there was a comrade in our branch who said, well, in my office, this woman, she said she's a Zionist and she doesn't agree with me. So I said, start a collection for Calais, go round, people will give, say, would you like to give as well? And that is the other way. So I hope I brought some clarity. I do want to have a lot of discussion because this is an emerging and complex situation. And although the media, the anti-Semitism in the Labour Party has declined. Inside the Labour Party, there's no sign of the witch hunt stopping. So this is a serious thing to discuss. Okay, thank you, Krantz.